The rain was relentless. The streets were quiet, swallowed by darkness. Somewhere in the forgotten corners of New Orleans, a little boy was running barefoot through the storm. His small body was covered in bruises, his clothes torn, his eyes filled with terror. But deep inside, he held on to a single fragile hope that someone, anyone, might save him. At that same moment, inside a modest home tucked at the end of the block, a black woman named Margaret James sat by her window, whispering a quiet prayer. Her house was old but full of warmth, much like her heart. She was used to the silence, used to the loss. Years ago, she had buried her only child. Since then, she'd lived alone, finding comfort in helping others. As she looked up through the window, something caught her eye. A small figure stumbling through the rain, barely able to stand. She didn't hesitate. She opened her door and rushed outside without even thinking. "Baby, are you all right?" she called out. The boy turned to run, but his legs gave out. He collapsed in the muddy street. Margaret knelt beside him, gently lifting his fragile body into her arms. He was unconscious, soaked and shivering. Back inside, she wrapped him in warm blankets, gave him soup, and watched over him the entire night. She didn't sleep. She didn't ask questions. She just stayed. By morning, the police were at her door. Social workers. They examined the boy. His name was Elijah. He was 8 years old and had suffered years of horrific abuse. Burns, fractures, trauma no child should ever endure. They offered to take him into the system. But Margaret looked them in the eye and said, "No, he stays with me. I won't let the world break him again." Elijah didn't speak. Not for weeks. He flinched at sudden movements. He avoided mirrors. He stared at walls and cried in his sleep. But Margaret never pushed him. She cooked his favorite meals even when he didn't eat them. She hummed gospel songs while folding laundry. Every night she sat beside him and gently whispered, "You are safe now, baby, you are loved." Then one morning he placed a single flower on the kitchen table. He still didn't speak, but that flower said everything. From that day, things began to change. Slowly, carefully. Elijah learned to read, then write, then smile. Margaret would read him bedtime stories, and he'd listen with wide, shining eyes. He laughed for the first time on a Sunday afternoon when they made banana pancakes and he spilled flour all over the kitchen. That laugh echoed through the house like a miracle. But some wounds go deep. Elijah still had nightmares, still froze at the sound of yelling on television, still carried shadows in his eyes. Margaret didn't ask him to forget. She simply reminded him every single day that he was enough. Years passed. Elijah grew tall. He got good grades. He read medical books for fun. He once told Margaret, "I want to fix broken people like you fixed me." On the day he turned 18, they sat on the porch together, watching the sunset. He held her weathered hands in his. "Mama," he said, "you gave me a life. One day I'll come back as someone, I promise. Just wait for me." Margaret smiled. "You'll always be someone to me." The next morning, he left for college with a backpack and a heart full of purpose. Margaret stood on the porch and watched him walk down the road. Her eyes filled with tears, but her heart was proud. Years went by. Letters came, then postcards. Elijah became a doctor, a neurosurgeon. Then, silence. The letters stopped. The calls faded. Margaret waited. She waited through birthdays and Christmases, through storms and springs. Every evening she turned on the porch light just in case he came back. Her hair grew grayer, her steps slowed, but her hope never left. Then one quiet evening, there was a knock at the door. She opened it slowly. A tall man stood there wearing a white coat and a trembling smile. His eyes glistened with tears. "Mama," he whispered. Margaret covered her mouth in shock. "Elijah?" He stepped forward, dropped to his knees, and opened a small box. Inside was a medal and a note that simply read, "Because you saved one soul, thousands were saved through me." He looked up at her, eyes full of gratitude. "I built 3 children's hospitals in your name. I became what I am because you believed in me. But none of that matters as much as this moment. Being here with you, it's my turn now. I'll take care of you, the way you took care of me." Margaret, crying softly, cupped his face. "My son, you always were someone, but now the whole world knows it." That night, they sat on the porch again, hand in hand, just like old times. This story isn't about saving a child. It's about what happens when one heart refuses to stop loving, even when the world turns cold. It's about how a single act of kindness can echo across generations. And if you ever wonder whether your love, your kindness, your courage may